So now we have my favorite kind of daily cancellation. Today we deal with a controversy where everybody involved is wrong. This week, a post from Reddit has gone viral on Twitter, and this post apparently originated on the Millennials subreddit. I've never visited that forum, but I can only imagine what sort of horrors one might find there. And in this case, the post is from a millennial man, a guy in his late 30s, he says, who is complaining bitterly about his parents. On Twitter, much of the commentary seems to be on his side, on the guy's side. I would imagine that the good folks over at the Millennial Reddit forum were also largely sympathetic to him. But here's what the post says, quote, WTF is wrong with our parents. My wife and I have spent almost 2 decades leveling up in jobs and careers and are now in our late 30s with 2 small children in a HCOL state. We scraped and suffered to buy a small ranch house and 2 used larger cars for our family. Our credit is suffering. I'm personally in $20,000 of credit card debt that I'm slowly working down. Our kids attend daycare that bled our savings dry. Typical millennials. Quick editor's note here. This is typical millennial stuff. Most of all, the part where they're bleeding their savings dry for the sake of having 2 parents work while the kids are in daycare. You know, I know that my fellow millennials aren't typically fans of quote-unquote gender roles, but this would be a compelling argument in favor of the wife staying home and raising the kids. I mean, maybe they have a circumstance where they can't do that for some reason. But very often, you know, this is a very common scenario where you've got both parents working, and it actually it would make more sense financially to have only one parent work. So that's something they might want to think about at least, but let's continue. Last week, I came across my father-in-law's account summary, $10+ million. Later that week, I mentioned I saw that to my own dad. He said, well, he's doing just a bit better than me. Literally, what the F? I would give my last dollar to my son to make sure he was more comfortable, to make sure he didn't suffer debt or bad credit as long as he was working. Here are our own effing parents sitting on their piles of gold, watching us navigate a new level of effed up economics and shopping for discounts and raising our children in subpar school districts, and for effing what? So that's the whole sob story. And as I said, most of the social media peanut gallery seems to be on this guy's side. The consensus is that boomers are selfish, greedy hoarders who'd rather live in luxury than help their own children. One comment summarized it this way, quote, boomers deserve excruciating deaths. That comment has 6,000 likes, by the way. That's how you know that things are going well in American society, when the generations are wishing painful deaths on each other. Always a good sign. Now, putting these rather over-the-top comments to the side, it is true that our current system, maybe not created by the boomers, but certainly popularized by them, is not only backwards, but also very unique to the modern age. In most cases, parents should not wait until they're dead to share their wealth with their children, but that is how it goes very often these days. You know, you should want your children to have everything that you have and more. The modern approach, again, emphasis on modern, because this is not at all the traditional way of doing things. But the modern way is for the older generation to accrue wealth over the course of many decades, hang on to nearly all of it, blow through a huge portion of it in the final 5 to 10 years of their lives, or really the final 2 or 3 years of their lives, and then give the rest to their children when their children are in their 50s and their own kids have already moved out of the house. And then those kids will hang on to all of that wealth, blow through most of it, and give the remainder to their kids when their kids are in their 50s, and so on and so on and so on. Just repeating these steps while the inherited wealth dwindles and each successive generation becomes poorer and poorer. The system makes no sense. The goal of each generation should be to ensure greater prosperity for the next generation. We should want our children to be richer and more comfortable than we are. The boomer generation as a whole has failed in this regard. Plenty of individual boomers are good people and were great and loving parents who provided all they could for their children. My own parents are in this group, but the generation as a whole is leaving behind a poorer country than the one they inherited. Their kids are poorer than they are, which means that the generation as a whole has fundamentally failed to do the thing it is supposed to do, which is to create a better world for their children. They have not done that. And the scenario that the Redditor describes is emblematic of this. It should be a point of shame to be wealthier and living in greater luxury than your children. Instead, it's kind of become the new normal, with older people hanging on to their wealth with like a vice grip until death pries it from their hands. Are you struggling with back taxes or unfiled returns? The IRS is escalating collections by adding 20,000 new agents and sending millions of demand letters. Handling this alone can be a huge mistake and cost you thousands of dollars. In these challenging times, your best offense is with Tax Network USA. With over 14 years of experience, the experts at Tax Network USA have saved clients millions in back taxes. Regardless of the size of your tax issue, their expertise is your advantage. Tax Network USA offers 3 key services: protection, compliance, and settlement. Upon signing up, Tax Network USA will immediately contact the IRS to secure a protection order, ensuring that aggressive collection activities such as garnishments, levies, or property seizures are halted. If you haven't filed in a while, if you need amended returns, or if you're missing records, Tax Network USA's expert tax preparers will update all of your filings to eliminate the risk of IRS enforcement. Then they'll create a settlement strategy to reduce or eliminate your tax debt. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and now that tax season is over, collection season has begun. Tax Network USA can even help with state tax issues. For a complimentary consultation, call today at 1-800-958-1000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Walsh. That's 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh today. Don't let the IRS take advantage of you. Get the help you need with Tax Network USA. This is a major problem, and it's certainly not the approach that I intend to take with my kids. So, that's all true. On the other hand, you should also be embarrassed to be in your late 30s with a family of your own and kids of your own and still crying because mommy and daddy won't give you an allowance. You especially shouldn't be crying about it on the internet, even if anonymously. It's hard to imagine any scenario where it's appropriate to complain about your family on the internet, but if there is one, this certainly ain't it. And no matter the forum, whether on the internet or anywhere else, this is not the mentality that a grown adult should have. It's true that if you're working and struggling and your parents have literally millions of dollars stashed away, or even only, quote unquote, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they should help you. But you should not feel entitled to their money. That's the dynamic here. This is a lesson that I try to teach my own kids, who are all under the age of 12. I certainly hope they'll have absorbed it by the time they're pushing 40. I'm blessed to be able to provide my kids with a wonderful life, all kinds of luxuries that many kids across the world will never have. But they shouldn't expect it or demand it or feel entitled to it. The moment they start making demands is the moment they start losing the wonderful things. My kids understand this because I've told them many times. I am required by law to feed them, clothe them, shelter them. I'm also morally obligated to provide these basic necessities. But everything beyond that is a luxury. I provide some luxuries because I'm generous and I have the means. They should accept those luxuries humbly and with a grateful heart. If they have any other attitude about it, they will lose those things. So here's a very small scale example, typical example for many parents. A few weeks ago, I was out running a few errands with my 4-year-old. And we were at the store. We walked past at the store, the toy section. And she said, Daddy, can I get a toy? Now, I was actually already planning on buying her a toy. It wasn't her birthday. There was no special occasion. I just felt like being generous. And I thought it'd be a nice thing just to get her to just because. But I wasn't ready to buy the toy yet. And that's because I was still getting other things I needed. And so if we're gonna buy a toy, we're gonna do it on my time, not hers. So I said, we'll see. Now, normally my 4-year-old is pretty patient by 4-year-old standards, but she wasn't feeling patient on this day, so she started pouting. And I guess she was assuming that she wasn't actually gonna get the toy, or upset maybe that she wasn't getting as quickly as she wanted. And then she said the fatal words. She said, "That's not fair. I want a toy. It's not fair." Oh, really? It's not fair that you aren't getting a toy the second you ask for it? So I owe you the toy, do I? Well, now you aren't getting it. See, I was going to buy you a toy, but now that you're demanding it, you're not going to get any toy at all. I'm happy to buy you a toy unless you think I owe you the toy, in which case I'll buy you nothing. And if you use the F word with me, fair, then you're really out of luck. Because there's nothing fair about buying you a toy. I'm giving you something and getting nothing in return myself. Like, that's not fair. And billions of children across the world never get any toys. Even when I was a kid, my parents rarely just bought us random toys. We couldn't afford it. So the toy isn't fair. It's not fair. It's a blessing. And the only acceptable attitude when receiving a blessing is one of gratefulness and humility. Now, back to the Redditor. Is it fair for his parents to give him money to pay off his debts and live a more comfortable life? Hell no. It's their money. It's not his. I mean, it is their money. They earned it. He didn't. He's an adult now. He doesn't live at home. They're not, it's not their job to keep him, to give him the necessities of life. He doesn't need the necessities. I mean, he has all that. He's not dying. And so all the rest of it, they probably accrued that wealth by working hard. It's just most boomers who are doing well, like they did work hard. Some would say they emphasized work too much, but they worked hard. They accrued the wealth. And they probably exercised a hell of a lot more financial discipline than he seems to be capable of, which is how he got into $20,000 of credit card debt. So is it fair for them to help him out? No, it's not really fair. Most people around the world have no one to help them. He isn't going to die without his parents' help. He isn't going to starve. Neither are his children. He's surviving. He's not destitute, right? He's not homeless. He's not impoverished. But they could make him more comfortable and they could reduce his stress level. Should they do that for him? I think yes, absolutely. Unless he thinks he's owed it, which apparently he does. So if I was that guy's dad, I would probably want to give him the $20,000 to pay off his credit card debt. I'd probably also want to buy him better vehicles, maybe even a nicer house. But I'd want to give him money. I'd want to give him, rather than waiting until I'm dead so he can inherit my wealth, I'd like him to inherit right now. And I'd like my grandchildren to benefit from that right now. I'd rather be alive to see them benefiting from that than watching from the grave. But if I saw that Reddit post, and I said to myself, well, wait a minute, I remember having that conversation with my own son. Wait, that's him, isn't it? If I saw that, well, then you get nothing. Figure it out for yourself. Because I want my son to be prosperous and comfortable, but even more than that, I want him to be strong and humble and resilient in the face of hardship. And I want him to be stoic enough that he can deal with the hardships without complaining to the whole world about it. I don't want him to be the sort of grown man who cries on the internet because his parents won't give him money. And if he is that sort of man, well, we've got a problem to fix that money can't fix. In fact, money will only make it worse. So this is a thing that millennials in general need to understand. We spend a lot of time discussing the flaws of the boomer generation. And there are plenty of flaws. But what about our flaws? And I would say our greatest flaw of all is that, speaking again generally, this does not apply to all of us, generally, we sit around stewing in our misfortunes and whining about the unfairness of the world instead of accepting the situation, acknowledging the reality for what it is, and working hard to improve it. Okay, yeah, we get it. The boomers should have done a better job. Okay, we constantly are talking about it. Millennials always, constantly, all the time. The boomers, they should have done better. Look at the world, it should be better. It should be better than it is. Things should not be like this. It should be better. It should not be this. It should be a better thing than this. Oh, yeah, okay. Still could be a lot worse, by the way. It's still pretty damn good in comparison to the world that the majority of the human species lives in or has lived in through history, right? You still, if you could choose any time to live in, maybe you would choose a few decades ago, but you wouldn't choose much further back than that. But yeah, it could be better. Okay, that's established. The boomers, all that, yeah, okay, right. But they should have left a better world. They didn't. Are we going to waste our whole lives crying about it? Are we going to go to our graves whining about the way things should have been and all the things that we should have been given but weren't? But it appears to be the plan for many of us. And that's a shame. And it's also why this guy on Reddit, and his parents probably, are today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.